But my name is David Freed. I lead growth and go-to-market here for our government business at Scaled Agile, and we're very excited to continue to bring you the Safe Government Insider. This has been asked for a long time. We want to hear from our partners, from our government customers, from safe in the trenches and new best practices, and so a good opportunity for everyone to come together and learn from each other. So we're going to keep doing this. So thank you for joining us today. Just a couple quick housekeeping things I'll go through. And then I'm going to turn it over to our presenters. So if we do have questions, please, if it's a formal question, go ahead and put it in the Q&A. We have a Q&A function, and that way we can track them. And we will make sure that we answer as many as we can. We'll also send out a recap email on Friday so that you'll have the recording, and we'll do the best we can to get all questions answered as soon as possible. Please engage in the chat. Again, people typically share experiences learning, and we want to see that. And then, if you have a formal question for our presenters or for Scaled Agile, you can go ahead and put them in the Q&A. A couple other just quick updates I wanted you to be aware of. If you haven't already known, we are actually doing our Safe Day Government event coming up in September in downtown DC at the Westin. We're really excited about this. It's, we've done it for many years, and we were going to host it in May, and we postponed it. But just for all who aren't aware, it is an in-person event in DC, September 25th. And it's going to be really great. We have 3 major themes that we're going to cover around visionary leadership in the digital age. Of course, AI and the future of government is a huge hot button, and we're going to cover that through panels and engaging sessions. And then we're also going to talk on acquisition reform and agile contracting, a big topic on how we can deliver more value quicker and not let contracting be our blocker. So a lot to learn there. And we also introduced our keynote, who is the Brigadier General R.J. Mikesh from, he's the Deputy Program Executive Officer for PEO Enterprise of the U.S. Army. And he's awesome. He oversees 37 mission critical systems within Enterprise at the Army. And he's an engaging speaker, a great leader, and he's going to share a lot of the experience with SAFE and their agile transformation at the U.S. Army. So he'll be a great person to engage with and to see speak. And then, so yeah, we'll get this link in the chat, but multiple ways to go ahead and register if you haven't already, and we'll see you there. And also a plug, we do have our large SAFE Summit in Denver a few weeks before. So for those who can travel out, and it's going to be a wonderful show, probably over 1,000 people with an AI focus as well, and lots of great learning and networking. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing this and introduce our speakers. So again, we're really lucky to have Mike Idengren and Keith Mangold from LSAi Digital. I've had the pleasure of working with both these guys for a long time now. They've been long-term Scaled Agile partners. Both of them have over 20 years of experience in digital transformation and technology, and a lot of experience in government supporting customers like the Navy, the Air Force Research Lab, as well as a lot of commercial experience as well. A big focus of the business is on people, process, and technology, and really evolving beyond that with AI. And that's what we're going to hear about today, the concept of human AI, and really kind of getting beyond agentic and understanding how humans and AI work together to deliver the most value possible, whether you're in a safe environment or any type of environment that's delivering value. So I'll go ahead and turn this over to Mike and to Keith. And guys, thank you for being here, and we're excited to see your presentation today.
Thanks, David.
All right, thanks, David.
Yeah, no problem.
So thank you, David, and welcome, everyone. I'm Mike Idengren, Human AI Architect, and Keith Mangold, Human-Centered AI Designer. We're both from LSAi Digital. Today's session is all about getting sustainable product value out of AI, not just experimentation. Specifically, we're diving into not just AI, but human AI, and what it means, why it matters, and how it's helping government programs move beyond proof of concept into measurable outcomes. So let's start by sharing what we're going to cover today. Maybe you've been experimenting with ChatGPT yourself to try to figure out how to build large-scale solutions that work and connect those dots. So we're going to talk about the human AI framework and how principles, practices, and tools help plan and deliver AI value at scale. So we're going to talk about real examples and give you some actionable strategies built on top of Chat GPT prompts that you might kind of already be using today. So let's be honest. Most AI projects stall. 80 to 90% are not moving past pilot. So says McKinsey, right? It's not because of bad AI models. It's because we need solutions that solve problems, not just the technology. This is not a new message. A lot of the folks in the audience have probably heard this message and even preached this message before, right? We need to think about how tech enables the processes, workflows, and consider how we bring customers along for the ride. So, and I know I'm speaking to an agile-minded audience here. I think most folks can understand that poor productization practices are really blocking value delivery here. And so the answer is human AI, which is a combination of the things that humans do really well with what AI does really well. So humans combine their creativity, intuition, empathy, and strategic thinking with AI agents who have advantages of processing power, pattern recognition, scalability. Human AI is delivered through a value of framework of principles, practices, and examples. And you can read more about those on the website, human-ai.com. So here's how it works. Humans and AI work together to leverage what humans do really well to help AI get smarter over time. We give the system some input, a request, and some data. The AI proposes a response, we review it, and the system stores and learns from the feedback. Then the next time we ask for assistance, the AI suggestion is better for the next input request. So what you're looking at is a very high level, kind of simplified machine learning loop. Actual machine learning loops go into a lot of detail about data collection and analysis and so on. But it's a real key concept to make human AI solutions work. So let's dig in further.
And hello, my first time on the camera here. So I'm Keith. Let me show you some of the actual ways that we've applied this human AI design kind of that Mike just showed a couple different examples. Whether it's just triaging your freedom of information requests, sending intelligent outreach messages, optimizing something as boring as IT patch schedules. These are the places where the human AI actually delivers results. And so two we'll briefly sample today is kind of a government acquisition reform and a cold outreach examples, and kind of a little sprinkling of other things throughout the process. So kind of as Mike said, with that feedback loop there, what actually makes up the human AI system, we kind of feel is these three different layers here. At the core, we have GPT and tools, ChatGPT, Jasper, Perplexity, Claude, right? Those large language models that you can just go and ask them information to. Around that, we add that you've all seen the agentic AI, huge thing out. I think every time I open up the news, I see something about some new AI agent doing something for you. Adds more logic, more tools that can plan, take actions, and make decisions for you. The next one, but we feel though is the biggest shift, the outer ring, the human AI aspect, the human in a loop, where it involves people in the loop to guide, to approve, to improve the system over time. And this is where things move from just that automating that agentic AI did to truly enabling the better decision making and delivery. So let me dig into a couple more examples to break it down. In this very simple demo, ChatGPT, if you've ever played with it or haven't, I'm going up to ChatGPT. We have maybe a sample RFP document. You received a question from a vendor. They're asking you a question about that RFP. Drop that RFP and the customer, that question from the vendor up into ChatGPT and say, hey, write me an email, right? ChatGPT in this case does its best to pull out the answers from the RFP and draft a response using its format. That inner ring we just talked about, that just chat GPT and tools. It's helpful. I don't think that goes far enough on its own though. So what we're trying to do is correct that, or we need to correct that information that maybe chat GPT gave you, copy and paste that email, make some changes and send it back to the vendor from there. But we'll take that to the next layer, adding that agentic AI side. So in this little demo here, this AI email response assistant is you're getting that email, you're pasting it in, whatever type of thing. But the system doesn't just respond and write the drafted email. It reads the incoming email, it figures out what's needed, and maybe routes questions to different people in your organization appropriately. For example, you give it the vendor email, paste it in, it analyzes it, figures out what next steps need to take. And maybe your AI agent has been scripted and configured already to then take the step to actually reply back to that vendor. You're getting automation, but still without really true human oversight there. So we take it up the next level up with the human AI. And here's where I think things really get interesting. And in this example application that we're showing here with the vendor email review center, it's going directly into your email box. It's looking at maybe a shared mailbox and saying, hey, let's look at all these 100 emails we have from vendors asking about an RFP. Let's group those by different topics. Maybe it's 5 vendors asking about compliance and 3 vendors asking about technical architecture. You know, AI is really good at seeing those patterns and help to organize that. The other part it's really good at is helping drafting a unified response. It can combine all those, maybe build a similar message back to them. But what we can do here is the human reviews that response before it goes out back to that vendor or those vendors. The human can adjust the text. You can provide comments and information back to the AI system so that it learns. When I replied back on this specific topic, here's how the response needs to sound, or here's actually the right answer. So 3 days from now, you get the same question or a very similar question. AI is that much smarter because you have trained it in that process. So yeah, that's why I'm sure with that, I think, right? Yes, that was my demo. So that's how we like to think about it. The GPT and tools are great for starting things. If you haven't played with it, play with it. It's fun. I was having GPT draft a snarky response to one of my friends yesterday. Great, draft a reply to a text message, right? But then, hey, maybe next time that friend sends me a message, I need to get that information back and automatically have it reply. That's what the agent AI could do. But now, you know what? I want it to monitor multiple inboxes. I want it to deal with the vendors. I want to reach out to us when it doesn't feel confident about the solution. You might have heard where AI or ChatGPT or Claude, or you name it, Google Gemini hallucinates, right? You work with that. So when it is having that situation, it comes back to the human, helping you provide it that better input. So AI agents involved, the humans involved, the human AI system learns to deliver that better, more auditable response from beginning to end. I feel like I'm going very fast, but you know, that's what you get when you get nervous on camera with everybody, right? At least I do. So what else sets the human AI apart here? You know, at its core, it's about the smarter answers, right? How can we best get that answer back to the end person? We want that faster decision. We want AI to do the research for us, give us that prompt, to give us that information that it already knows. Instead of me sifting through 30 pages of an RFP, it can find the context what the person was asking a lot faster. So it's going to give us that faster decision there. And then obviously that continuous learning aspect. Human makes the first pass, the human brings the context, it comes back and forth, makes the whole system sharper over time. And that's what we feel with the human in a loop, the human AI concept is where you get the real results. Over to you, Mike.
So thanks, Keith. And Keith went through a bit of kind of how, you know, what AI and human AI really is. And now we're going to kind of pivot to the how, right? So it's one thing to say, yeah, human AI is better, but how do you actually build that into product development and DevOps processes? Not just the technical stuff, but how do we really engineer the value out of this, right? That's what we're going to unpack over the next few slides. Simple, practical exercises anyone can start experimenting with. So to realize the scale of value of human AI, we need some high-level principles that are going to guide more flexible, context, agency-sensitive practices. So some of these are pretty obvious to Agile practitioners, such as starting small and scaling up. I mean, who here hasn't heard of iterative and incremental development since the late 90s, right? But some are new, right? So for human AI, clarifying intent is in the context of understanding human intent to minimize machine learning bias, right? And aside from that, one of Scale Agile's core values is transparency. So we know this. And that might be most similar to making decisions visible. In the context of human AI, that's specifically referring to AI transparency. So Keith was talking about hallucination earlier, and it's basically making sure that humans really understand what the AI is doing and why. So now let's talk about the practices. We'll keep this simple. We're just going to say, hey, we're going to discuss 3 practice areas aligned to typical lean portfolio pipeline. At the front end of the pipeline, we'll continuously collect all the ideas, whether that's from people or AI scrub documents, notes, or a shared drive full of pain points. We just want all the ideas to come in. Right? We'll prioritize the ideas, and we're going to pick the best ones that matter the most based on cost, value, and feasibility. Right? So when budget for an MVP has been approved, we'll implement and improve and use the loop to make something real and learn from it. Right? So now we're going to walk through these. He's going to guide us through collecting ideas.
So here's kind of our title slide. That's all that is, right? And so here's the kind of the first step in the action. We know I'm a software developer at heart over the last 20 years, and project managers and scrum master in the different roles that, hey, you're talking with your team members and coming up with ideas on what an application needs to do, right? You maybe have some data analysis from campaign information. You maybe have some interviews on what a function and feature needs to do. You've done some user research, all those things, right? At a basic level, you need to collect all those ideas and do something with it. Now, using that in an AI process is the purpose of this webinar. Get all that information, drop that information to ChatGPT or one of the LLMs and say, hey, I want you to extract all these analysis, all these interviews, all this user research, all these different sources. I want you to help me organize this information, that pattern recognition that LLMs are really good at doing. Get that pattern recognition and give me a list of the stories, the features, the epics that might need to happen here, right? Maybe group them by different categories and different themes that you might be having within your application. Just core-based analysis that it's going to, give out to you at the end. And then, I think at the end, if the demo goes long enough or short enough here, I tell it to extract all the data and give it to me in a CSV format that I can then drop that up into, Jira or, you name your backlog tracking and management system from there. So just basic idea generation. Also, asking ChatGPT or your LLM, whatever one you're using, to give you ideas. What are the gaps that maybe you are missing or your users were missing that you want to find out? Just see what it says. Help the creativity that you get out of it. Then with that,
so we can use all the ideas that Keith talked about, right? This is a really good use of ChatGPT is to get the raw ideas, just give me some material to work with, right? And we can use them from people in AI consolidated documentation, consider how they roll up and shape more of a big picture idea. Right? Scaled Agile calls this an epic hypothesis statement, and it helps set the stage for picking the best ideas, which is what we're going to talk about next. So now the review crew is going to collaborate together, helping to pick the best ideas by asking and answering the hard questions. So this generally might include a few types of roles: an AI user-centered design expert, process intelligence experts, AI technology architects, and any other kind of agency players that might be relevant to that discussion, right? The user-centered design expert is going to help us understand who it's for. The tech architects are looking at the tech stack, how it's going to support the solution over the whole life cycle, not just POC, right? So investments, enablers. And the AI process intelligence experts are going to bring all those kind of views into the process, right? The UX, the technology, the business experts together and optimize a new human AI upgraded process. So again, we might have other agency players, depending on the solution and the agency, depending on, they all kind of collaborate and give input into what this new human AI process needs to look like to make sure it's not only fast and more efficient, but compliant, for example. So the human AI, human-centered design, they uncover the daily realities of the user. They try to understand the user perspective, who's using it, who is supporting it, not just the quote unquote customer of this product, but who's maintaining and operating it on the back end from an operations perspective, right? So this helps us to avoid an AI that technically works but fails to help the humans. The next up is the AI architects, right? So they're addressing the non-functional requirements, security, reliability, scalability, and they're asking the questions: can it integrate with technology we already have? Will it scale? What does it cost to run at scale? Not just to build, but to run, monitor, and evolve. Kind of a little secret here: AI technology is not intended for everything. Actually, large language models are really slow and expensive compared to the very high transaction per second systems that tend to frequently already exist, especially in cloud, right? So we have to make the technology work together and figure out what the strengths and the weaknesses of each other are. And these agile architects are helping us to do that. So next up are the AI process intelligence experts. So for the best AI optimized processes, we're going to leverage our own LSAi Digital Human AI process simulation engine to get agency customized starting point for best acquisition processes. This engine, as you can see in the top there, it has three options you can pick from for human AI design: a conservative approach, which is the least amount of AI, more balanced approach, and then an AI first approach using the most amount of AI possible. So, and these are just templates. These are just, a place to start, right? 50%, 25%, 50%, 75%. This tool makes the process about you, right? Collecting your agency's acquisition process pain points. You can see in the box down there, we say, oh, look, we're struggling with vendor evaluation delays and compliance challenges, right? So now let's kind of see what the next step is. So now what we're seeing is a simulation of the AI first approach to see what it looks like at scale. So maybe 2 years worth of RFPs. Again, this helps us understand how this process scales up over time. And now that the simulation is complete, we get some stats back comparing the time and cost savings. But notably, there's a red box where we can see the process optimization recommendations that are affected by the pain points that we entered earlier. So again, this is about the agency. It's about you, right? It's not about some generic process, but it does bring in those best practices as much as possible and whatever other documentation is important. So then once we've got some ideas, that the process is API transferred to Eris process. It's a process design tool that allows for further process customization, considering the review crew's inputs, recommendations, and all those folks coming to the table saying, okay, here's what AI said we should do. But really, this is about us. And we know we got to have a lot of discussions to try to really think about what the human does versus what the AI does. And this tool, so we put Eris in a few agencies. It really is flexible enough to help us take that input and make it work, and have like various people go to their desk and contribute to processes and so on. So once the review crew goes through and says, hey, let's figure out what process works here at a high level, not a lot of details, right? At this point, we're packaging up the review crew's analysis recommendations with the human AI optimized processes. And then What else? We use AI to summarize that into a lean business case, not a 25-page business case like I used to write in the MBA program 20 years ago, but a lean business case, maybe 4 pages. It'll outline the problem and propose a solution, value, risk, and cost, and get you kind of 80% of the way there. And then the humans refine it, right? So using AI to kind of consolidate all the options, all the data we know to this point into the LBC saves a lot of time, right? Takes that input and makes the case for why this idea should get funded instead of some other idea.
So as Mike said there at the end, the funded, right? You know, you've used the ideas that you collected at the very beginning from, you know, all the different user sources. You've done the analysis of picking the best ideas. Maybe you've gone through simulations and you've talked to your architects to figure out what needs to do. And you get that phone call that happens a week later from your boss that says, great, you have unlimited budget, spend away, make this awesome application, make a system work today. Wouldn't that be nice if it happened that quickly? But we know it doesn't. So, hey, you have that, right? You have that. One example that we use here is one of the tools that we wrote and is being used is a tool called ProspectPilot. And it's a cold outreach tool. And what that does is it helps marketing work. And so we did that analysis, we did the user research, we did this process simulation, all those different things that we did, and we came up with that lean business case. We came up with those epic hypotheses. We came up with all those different features in the backlog. We took all of that output and we dropped it into a tool such as Replit. Replit's an online accessible tool you can use that does vibe coding. If you're not familiar with vibe coding, it's being able to use AI prompts to basically produce an application. Really awesome way, in my opinion, to like just get your hands on a piece of working software that is starting at something. So you can kind of see here, it is doing the logic. It was drawing the screen with this application, creating a working system at that process. It didn't just give you ideas. It was allows you to go in, click on it, do different functions, and work with it from there. Now, highly suggest having developers that actually understand architecture behind the scenes to do it. Please don't make an app on Replit and publish it out for everybody in the world to see. You set yourself up for a security hole right there. But anyways, one of those things that before Replit ever wrote any line of code that we did here, you know, we had that AI review crew, the architects, the center designers, et cetera, the process improvement engineers. They really pinpointed, you know, a key feature, something that with high impact that we should really build into the ProspectPilot application. And that's the human in the loop aspect. We knew upfront this wasn't about automating, just sending out emails and do cold outreach emails. It was about designing the system that learns from the people, that adapts from the feedback and improves over time. So when we built the first working version of this app in Replit, we then used that feature to make sure we focused on first. And an example of that human in the loop feature is what we're seeing here. So this is ProspectPilot. It's our human AI system, like I said, for outbound marketing. And here what you're seeing is the AI system is generating a first draft of an email. It knows our product, it knows our services, and says, hey, let's go find somebody on the Googles and LinkedIn and search for them and send them out an email. AI drafted that email, but the human steps in, adding rating and adding comments and corrections. That's what we're seeing here and doing it. Instead of just adding and rating and comments for it, that is actually training the AI system. It's training it on how to better write the next email and how to better do the next task. Maybe it's matching the tone, aligning with goals, avoiding prior mistakes. Maybe it hallucinated again, gave you something different. So what started off as maybe that's a fine email becomes that's exactly what we want to say. And so what that happens is it causes a downstream shift. And what I mean by that is instead of you having to sit here and write 1,000 or read 1,000 emails that are going to go out to cold outreach potential clients, Since the AI system has learned how it works and it's got the human in a loop and understand your terminology over time and maybe your change in messaging, you can just spot check 1% of them. You can be confident the system has internalized your intent and your messaging. And so that's why we say, hey, it's not just faster to use this process to do it. The AI system actually got smarter. It got more aligned. It got more consistent with how your team communicated. And that's what, your potential audience, your potential clients responded to better. That continuous learning there. So this general concept of that human in the loop, maybe just with this cold outreach process, maybe for our government friends on the line, you're not obviously doing cold outreach and trying to get business, but here's how that same concept maps to possibly different some government processes that we're just using as examples here. A basic one we can all relate to in government, and we used it earlier in this demo, was the RFP example. We've seen how manually reviewing submissions can take forever, and you still might risk seeing issues and that might come across. So here we're showing that how we're going to input those RFPs and those questions. The AI agent is going to review what happens there, similar to ProspectPilot, where AI flags relevant sections, maybe highlights inconsistencies, and even proposes revised language. That human reviewer is still going to make the call, but the AI does the heavy lifting and learns from that feedback over time. And in this situation, it's not necessarily about replacing the reviewer. It's about saving them from the noise so they can focus on more of the important signals that are coming across. Another example about communications, this may be outreach for benefits enrollment, very similar to that ProspectPilot concept of that, but maybe that blanket email campaign with low engagement. But by applying the same pattern we did, where you use AI to draft it, you teach it how to work better, that benefits coordinator can review, tweak, approve, and the system is learning what language or timing actually works to get that out. So instead of blasting the same message to everyone, you're continuously improving that outreach effectiveness over time for the next message. And the last little sample that I have here is, sorry, I see messages coming over in chat, or they just want to make sure we're okay. Policy updates. Have you ever had a policy that needs to be updated? New regulation, new law, whatever needs to happen. You need to go sift through 50 different policies and make changes. Maybe you're spending hours doing that. Drop those policies, drop those new regulations, laws, etc., into a system, and the AI agent will review them, look and see what needs to happen. So instead of your team having to spend hours sifting through it, the AI agent in the human in the loop system generates the draft based on your previous language policy, route it maybe to the right stakeholders for feedback, flag contradictions, deal with outdated references, etc. That human reviewer does what they do best, apply the judgment. The process that, once again, is learning from that judgment that the human is training the system, and the system gets faster and more accurate each and every single time. So that's having that junior policy analyst who learns your style much quicker, and maybe without the attitude of a junior policy analyst, right? So anyways, I think now we're to Mike. Just a few examples.
So thanks for the examples, Keith. We really wanted to take something we've done in commercial and kind of cross that over to what we really mean for government examples. But now we come to the heart of the message. So human AI is about improving people, process, and AI technology together, not in separate silos. And most of our examples are about giving humans time back, right? Such as freeing analysts from sifting through hundreds of pages, or freeing writers from starting with a blank screen, right? Freeing outreach teams from guessing what works. It's augmentation. The best results come when humans do what they do best and AI amplifies their efforts. So what does it take to actually make this happen? It's not magic. It's a series of steps. First, you want to kind of think about aligning the vision and goals for the outcomes you want. Outcomes first. Outcomes first. And you identify use cases with friction. right? And human AI optimize the processes, building in the feedback loops. Extract the outcomes, measure what works and what doesn't. This is not new advice. Everyone's heard this before. It's still the same, right? What's working and what doesn't. Build telemetry into the system. All those kinds of practices still apply. Always keep a human in the loop. The roadmap here is what we follow ourselves and clients. It's what we followed for ourselves and clients, right? And honestly, it works, right? So let's look at a few strategies to make this happen in a government context. So for challenge number one, if you're not sure where to use or where to start with AI, first start with the problems, not the solutions. Again, what are the outcomes we want? Collect and pick the best ideas and bring in the right experts, frameworks, and tools to plan your human AI product roadmap, right? And multiple agencies use Scaled Agile. The Scaled Agile, the SAFe framework, there's a lot to it, but the key is you don't need to use everything in it. Use what fits, what works, what makes sense, and know that it integrates with the rest of a bunch of good practices and principle backed by principles that work. And this is why we use things like Scaled Agile. Second, meeting challenge number two will help sharpen your product roadmap in challenge number one. So using enterprise process modeling tools like ARIS are really going to help bring various expert advice into the same model, allowing for simulation and more realistic human AI costs, risks, and benefits, because that's a balance. You don't just turn a sim loose and say, give me everything, right? It's all a balance. What we're trying to do is get ideas and simulate what it looks like at scale. And again, multiple agencies kind of use process intelligence. We put that in a few of them. But the idea is to augment that process intelligence, the process modeling tool with simulation tools that really bring in the things like the cost of AI tokens now, right? Which is a new thing, new concept, for example. So third one, waiting on ATO for an AI technology. How many of us have been in this spot, right? So let's look, while you're waiting on an ATO, talk to other agencies, right? LSAi Digital has helped AFRL start their transformation in 2022 to 23. And when we put in their Google Cloud Platform Foundation, they later on extended it to include Google Gemini licenses, right? So they started experimenting earlier with that, which is what one would expect a research lab to do, right? So additionally, ChatGPT recently released a government product that allows agencies to deploy ChatGPT in their own Azure government cloud environment. AFRL is currently using that for ChatGPT administrative and basic coding right now. And then the last one here is extending technology beyond the POC. Consider how existing technology is going to work alongside the new AI ML technology with the app tech portfolio rationalization, right? So remember what we said earlier, AI is not everything, right? There's a lot of products that exist today in infrastructure that some estimates are 95% of it are still going to be there. It just needs to integrate smartly alongside AI, right? And doing this app technology portfolio rationalization is something that is a good practice regardless of AI, right? So this just happens to be a really good reason to get serious about doing it. And multiple agencies are using tools like Alphabet to do that. So I'm going to hand it over to Keith, and he's going to tell us about some questions.
Yep. And just sidetracking, I'm seeing a conversation going over in the chat thread, and I just want to say thanks, David, for stealing our thunder with the answer of augmentation. We'll get back to hopefully maybe we'll have time for that question at the end there, Laura and Will. But thanks, David. Sorry, back to this over here. So trying to multitask. Let's see, where was I at? Next slide. So thanks, Mike. So as Mike showed you, you've seen some real world examples, not just PowerPoint dreams, some demos, actual systems people are using today. You've got strategies to borrow. Mike just covered those. Ideas swirling, maybe even that we should totally do that moment. That was my Valley Girl, totally do that moment. And sure, your agency might still be wrangling ATOs, checklists, budget puzzles, legacy tech stuff that just won't go away quietly. But here's the thing. We know that strategy doesn't matter if it just sits in a slide deck. We want to help you do something with that. So this is that big pie in the sky. We'll leave you with that one simple question kind of as this, process. Where do you want to start? Right? It's not a one size fits all type of situation. It's not every single thing can be solved by AI and just plug it in and make it go. But everything you've seen today, with the smart outreach solutions, maybe with like the ProspectPilot stuff, the benefits outreach, maybe the RFP reviews, policy updating, process simulation. For us, they all started with the small practical steps. They weren't giant moonshots. They weren't trying to get a man on the moon right away. They were just those smart experiments backed by the humans guiding AI through the process. And that kind of goes to that chat conversation I see happening over there, backed by AI augmenting the work. And so with that, AI improved over time with feedback and iterations, and the humans improved over time with feedback and those iterations that we were getting from both systems working hand in hand. So that's where we, wonder, you have ideas. Something here that we talked about has sparked an idea, maybe an example or sample hasn't directly, hit something you actually have a problem with today. But we're all thinking about it, right? And so if you have a different process in mind, that's where we would love to talk to you more about that process and give you more ideas and help you with your ideas, and see where the human in the loop systems and the architectures and UX designers can help in that process there. I'm going all of a sudden there a little bit salesy plug there. Wasn't my intent, but that's what we're for here at LSAi Digital in that process.
So thanks again for spending the time with us today. And thanks to David and Scale Agile team for inviting us. You can see some of our past webinars. The one, how we designed and built a human AI solution is one we just did. More detail on the process intelligence and simulation is coming up, the second one. And so we'll send out the links to register for those if you like, and we'll hang around a bit to see if there are any questions from the audience.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
That conversation. Sorry, David, go ahead there.
No, no worries. I certainly wasn't trying to steal anyone's thunder, but I really appreciate you guys for your message, your experience, and kind of bringing this forward. And it's a very important topic of humans and AI working together. That there's no doubt that's the future, right? And so there seems to be a cluster of topics here towards the end. Maybe we can start there of just general fear around whether it's a developer. I saw it from a BA perspective that jobs are going to be replaced, or even understanding that you need to move forward with AI, but there still seems to be a level of fear around, is this going to replace me? And want to hear your guys' thoughts around that.
So yeah, it's definitely, there are statements that fly around like, oh, AI is going to replace all humans. And then AI is not going to replace humans, right? The more precise way of thinking of that, I think, is AI is not going to replace high value human judgment. So the subtext there is, the advice is learn, use ChatGPT, understand what it can do, and then you will be one of those higher value folks in your own subject domain, pair it up with your own subject domain, and it will not replace you. To answer that directly. Is that I hope that answered the question.
I guess I was going to say too, Mike, that I think, putting those pilot programs into place is one thing. You got to start somewhere, right? Maybe it's not a huge solution, but show where that AI is improving their work, whether that human in a loop design where the AI learns from their feedback, keeping the humans in control of the process. What are those opportunities, I guess? And then and I'm going to go back to like that responsible AI stuff. I actually did a scaled agile. I'm sorry, I'm going to forget his name. I'll probably get in, if hope he's not on who did a session in DC on one of the safe government sessions about responsible AI. But I guess it's that transparency in your outcomes, right? Showing how your input improved the final product, showing where you're using AI in the process, and showing how it is a teammate as opposed to getting rid of you, so augmenting it.
So I see another question in the chat, David. I'll just jump into this one. I see
Please.
a question that's very, very government/DoD oriented security, right? So it says, in environments with clearance constraints, how do we scale a POC into a production system that maintains trust, compliance, and security standards? So at AFRL, what we did was we took an IL scaled approach. So impact level 4 is where we put the Google Cloud Platform first to allow for more flexible experimentation at lower levels. You could start at IL2, for example. What that lets you do is get faster interim authority to test, right? And to start your POCs, learn, scale up while you're working on an ATO towards IL5 secret NTS. That was our best. That worked out really well because, well, we're supposed to be learning anyway through the POCs and optimizing our process and simulating our process. Why not use that time to deploy something that's has lower security needs?
And Mike, I'll take one of the questions there about how secure it is to share documents with ChatGPT. I would obviously, for the government and DoD folks, don't share any of those top secret documents with ChatGPT. If it's a publicly available document, then I think it's fine in terms of that. If it's an internal document that maybe you don't want other people to see, it's not that when you share a document with ChatGPT, ChatGPT then makes that document text word for word available to the rest of the world. Oh, it looks like David just uploaded a new HR policy and wants to be reviewed. Can you tell me what Scaled Agile's HR policy is and whatever, right? Or maybe David put up an employee review, right, to ChatGPT and said, hey, I need to review so-and-so employee. I need you to help clean up this text. It's not like ChatGPT gets that information and goes, hey, everybody, here's where David just, wrote this negative review for one of their employees. It uses the language models to help train in phrasing and technology or phrasing and patterns. It's all about that pattern recognition. So not all about that. It does a lot more than that, but it's not necessarily sharing your information publicly out there in that free form method that, hey, you can go search on ChatGPT. What review did David give to Susie? Type of thing on that. And another side part just with time. I do know that there are different ChatGPT versions you can have if you use the team version of ChatGPT versus just doing a personal account. The team version does have its own restrictions where that data doesn't go outside even more. It goes outside of the ChatGPT system even less and less in that process. I don't work for ChatGPT and necessarily understand all of the intricacies behind it, but it doesn't there's different versions of it that provide different levels of security, especially the Azure, government cloud version is going to keep that stuff more separately there too.
I see a question on.
Oh, go ahead,
yeah,
Mike.
Go ahead, Dick.
No, you're good. If you saw one that you want to tackle, I mean, we have 10 minutes, or we'll do about 7 minutes, and then I'll wrap us up at the end.
Okay. So I see one on AI user-centered design around AI experts. Is the idea AI scrapes recommendations, a bunch of other data, and then AI experts build the system improvements. So the idea is that although we say AI user-centered design, that role does all AI, all user-centered design, right? They really think about the context of the human the customer who needs to achieve tasks to get goals accomplished out of the solution, right? That person's input is combined with compliance folks who may be at odds to say, hey, yeah, I know we want to have a really good experience, but you can't do this because this data cannot be used in that way, or cybersecurity. That's always how that back and forth goes. Those folks are the review crew. They fight it out during design, right? They deploy, they design, test, build, and deploy something that is safe, but lets them get feedback to iterate to the next step.
Yeah, Mike. Thanks for going through. It looks like we knocked out some of the main ones that came through the Q&A, and seems like some were able to post, others were not. So we'll look into that and get it figured out. But I know Daniel had a question, and he was basically saying, sounds like state government is relatively comfortable with generative AI, yet when it comes to machine learning and deep learning, they require oversight. What's your take on that?
Sorry, I do. So I just want to sidebar into one thing. So just to emphasize the example that I was last saying, I'm going to have you ask your question again, David.
Sure.
In this very webinar, some people can't access the Q&A. Some people can't stream video, right? I would bet you that there are some specific agency security policies on Teams that silently turn off certain features that you're not allowed to use, and then we have a worse experience because of it, right? Again, this is an illustration of security compliance versus user experience. It's always a battle. But the more you can bring out those viewpoints early on and have those honest discussions, the better the solution is going to hit that balance between being really secure and being really usable. Right. Sorry, David, can you ask your question?
No, it was a good example. I wish it wasn't our webinar that had the bad user experience potentially, but it's a very real point that you make. So thank you. It was from Daniel, who was just said, and he gave a state government, but it says relatively comfortable with generative AI, but when it comes to like machine learning or deep learning, that they require oversight, maybe more trust and compliance involved. What's your take on that?
AI learning and machine learning, as far as the humans are concerned in terms of injecting their experience, they can have a real bias. They can introduce bias into the system, right? Or even, and especially if the system's allowed to just train itself on data that's coming from untrusted sources, that's where bias can be entered. So when we construct the human AI, the human in the middle loop, as part of the larger machine learning operations loop, right? We need to think about the detail about how much we say this particular process, this particular product requires a lot of scrubbing and validation as to what is a good answer and what is not before we train this thing. But some other solution, maybe it doesn't matter as much. So it's going to differ based on the risk of the solution in terms of the impact of bias, is my answer.
Thanks for that, Mike. Maybe we can help Will get a little bit of confirmation. He really liked a phrase you used around AI is not going to replace a high-value human. And I think maybe if you remember, there was maybe more to that, and he said he didn't catch it. Do you remember what the last word or how you finished that sentence was?
Yeah, it's not going to replace the high value, the folks that are adding high value judgment, strategic thinking, and so on. That's who it's not going to replace. It is going to replace people who are just doing tasks. And I'm sorry, I'm a very direct person. I'm not trying to sugarcoat thing and here to say that AI is not going to replace humans. It actually is going to replace those who are not adding value.
Yeah, and it kind of brings full circle to what you started off talking about, like kind of the things that are uniquely human, and you just kind of confirmed some of that. And I think Will's example was around business analysis, where, I think a lot of the AI is probably really, really good, better than maybe any human at some of research analysis and some of the things we've maybe done in the past as BAs, but some of that critical thinking and, creativity and other, innovation things that you just mentioned can't really be replaced by AI, not yet at least. So it seems to kind of bring us full circle.
What is called artificial general intelligence, which is far away, but who knows how far at this point, as fast as everything's moving. Where you can't really, where the bots are actually able to apply judgment and be creative and come up with scenarios. Until then, we're all going to be needed for our judgment and our creativity and all those things that AI cannot replace. And even today, the word context becomes really important. Right? AI, everyone kind of maybe has heard about prompt engineering, like how do I write the right prompt? so ChatGPT can give me the right answer, right? Well, when you do that 1,000 times, suddenly the context buffer gets full and the chat slows down, right? And it's like, why is this taking so long to come back with an answer? Well, that's because it's trying to load everything you've ever told it, right, in this chat session. And now it's like, well, I'm having to process all this stuff. It gets expensive and it gets slow. So context engineering becomes an important concept going forward to figure out how to give it the right amount of context so AI can give you the best possible answer. It's a real art. And that's actually the next step that we're all trying to figure out how to optimize.
Awesome. I was just kind of doing a quick scroll through. It looks like we actually answered all the questions that came through the chat and also the Q&A. So worked out perfectly. Thank you guys so much for not only your expertise, but maybe taking a step further to answer more. And this doesn't have to be the end, so if there are additional questions or things that come up, like please reach out to Mike and Keith, reach out to me, and I can help you connect with those guys and others, across the government landscape as we work with, hundreds of state and local government agencies, tons of our partner and vendors that are supporting government. There's a lot to learn and a lot that we can learn from each other.